สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังกุณุตรังอุปัชฌายังนัมมัสสามิ Recap a few of the things that I've been talking about. The practice of meditation, what we call formal meditation. This means creating the optimum conditions for abandonment of the unwholesome, development of the wholesome, purification of the mind, minimizing obstructive conditions, maximizing supporting conditions. But it's basically the same work that we should be doing out of the formal meditation postures. There's no magic bullet, there's no technique perfectly suited to you that if you have the good fortune to discover it will help you to bypass all of the mental defilements and set the controls for the sun, and you can go on your speeding way. Because the meditation practice, particularly in the beginning, is intended to reveal to you the way that your mind normally works. If we compare the mind to, say, floating along in the Amazon or the Mississippi or one of these huge rivers in the rainy season, or when in spate, so that you can't see any of the banks and just floating along. And the only way that you can estimate the speed at which you're floating is by turning against the flow, and then you can tell just how strong that flow actually is. So we find out how the mind is functioning or malfunctioning by going against the grain, going against its habit, and asking it to focus on just one thing, and then see what happens. So if you already have a very well-disciplined mind, maybe, it might not be difficult. In fact, it must be said that some people, some monks, nuns, particularly, have done a lot of this work in past lives, and so when they start to meditate, it's just after a while, it's just like just breaking through a kind of a cap, just covering it over, and just piercing through and reconnecting with the expertise or the prowess from previous lives. But that's very rare, and don't hope for that one. I think you'll be disappointed. So, the idea I'm trying to convey here is that if you have a lot of things coming up in meditation, a lot of hindrances, it doesn't mean you're doing the wrong thing. It's more, in fact, a case of you're doing the right thing. So the mind generally has very little appetite for reality, if you like. It runs away, and runs away into sensual pleasure and into ill will and into dullness and laziness and agitation and anxiety, and these are the malfunctions of mind which for most people in the world are just normal function. Even the idea or the concept that there could be a different way of living in the world is by no means obvious or even rejected. So we give our minds this job, this task, say, just be with one thing, like the breath going in and going out. And the first of these hindrances, as we call them, arises is the escape into sensuality. Now, in daily life, that might be escape into eating and watching and listening and all kinds of activities which we try to fill up this kind of empty feeling inside ourselves with. In meditation, you can't do that. You can't go off and eat something and raid the fridge or get onto your telephone. You're here now with this mind, and so you're learning. Oh, this is what happens. When my mind seeks to escape from the present moment. This is one of its favorite pastimes. So the sensual world here, again, like with many of these defilements, we're talking about a spectrum, really, from very mild, almost imperceptible level to a very gross, coarse level. So in the case of this first hindrance, then the sort of the gross or coarser level would be indulging in, say, sexual fantasies, something which gives really strong emotion and excitement in the mind. And the mind wanting some kind of extreme stimulation right now. So sexual thoughts are the go-to remedy if you want some strong, pleasant thought, energy in the mind right here and right now. But sensuality and sensual thoughts, the move towards the sensual as a strategy to deal with suffering and to deal with the unwillingness to be in the present moment, often takes far more benign forms, and it can be anything at all that you like. So rather than referring to sensuality, which is a kind of a loaded term, isn't it? I often think of it as moving towards and taking comfort in what you like. So what you like, it might be music or literature or sport or politics or any topic at all that you enjoy. And so if it's something which is not in any way evil, obviously bad, then that makes it more alluring in some ways, because it doesn't really feel that you're doing the wrong thing. But when I was a teenager, I was hungry for knowledge, and that's a kind of sensuality as well. But in my bedroom, you'd have, I don't know how many different books open at different places. And you go into a bedroom and you sort of pick up the book that sort of answered the need and the mood of the moment. You've got all these sort of ongoing books, fiction, non-fiction, everything. But I think the mind is a bit like that. You've got all these kind of books on the go, or kind of go-to short-term pleasure outlets, so you can just, that particular thought or that particular topic, it gives you that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling that you're looking for. And that's the it's the danger of it. You're looking for what is in fact very superficial, short-term pleasure buzz as a means of dealing with anything that you don't want to deal with. So seeing how that works in your mind on the purely mental level in meditation exposes that whole way of relating to your life and your experience that we're often blind to, because it's just our style, the way we do things. When we have a particular interesting thought or something, you can feel that kind of hook there and that kind of pleasure. It's almost like a sugar buzz, that kind of, you're just sort of tuned into that. Or it's a bit like that, I can't remember, is it Linus's blanket, in the Peanuts cartoon. It's a thought, it's an idea, it's a memory of something pleasant that you can go to. So say it's not like a bad thing, but it's a hindrance to meditation. So if we're not seeing what it is that we want from a thought and a memory and a fantasy, when we're aware of the mind's lost the meditation object, and then we okay, stop, go back to the breath, be a good boy, be a good girl. But one part of you doesn't really want to go back. It's reluctantly you return to the breath, and it's still like that book's still open. It's still there. The dish is still on the table, as it were. And it's quite likely that after not so long, you'll find your mind going back to that same thing again. And that's where you get really frustrated with meditation. So a couple of things here. One is to observe that with a thought, a memory, a hindrance in which we're enjoying some mental state, then observe the pleasant feeling. Don't be too fixated on the content. Oh, here I am thinking about this again and thinking about that again and down that rabbit hole. So the content, the actual what you're thinking about, is only one side of it. The other side is that kind of warm, fuzzy, safe kind of feeling you get when you latch onto something like that. And you have to renounce that as well. It's just not renouncing the topic that your mind is caught up in, but the pleasant feelings which are the hook, which are keeping you there. And when you recognize that you're caught up in some thought or other, then before you return to the breath, just mark it as impermanent, or mark it as not self, or mark it as garbage or trash or whatever. Just a sense of signing off on it and not leaving it open. Don't leave the book open, the dish on the table, to use that analogy. It's like, okay, that's not worth my time. I'm wasting my time. Even if what I'm thinking about may be something with some possible use to my career, or some people feel, oh, well, when I'm meditating, I just have such great ideas, you know. It's just like, can I write them down? I'm afraid I'll forget them afterwards. And and they're probably not such great ideas, you know. I think. Anyway, that's not the time and the place. If you want to sit and just allow thoughts about work and work problems and so on to bubble up in your mind, and allow your mind to sort of brainstorm a bit, that's a different thing. That's not meditation. That might be quite a good thing to do sometimes. But make it a separate kind of activity. It's not, because otherwise you know, if you do this once and you're sitting there and you have this great idea and you write it down, and then you get to work and you, oh wow, no, that's kind of gives you a whole new perspective on meditation. But it's not. It means that next time you meditate, you're going to hope for more of the same, and you're not really meditating anymore. So having that clear idea of what it is that you're doing and why, and what exactly are hindrances and obstacles, and having just that kind of integrity to say, no, that's not the time and the place for that. And the thing about sensual pleasures, and whether it's like imagined sensual pleasures or the memory or thinking about sense pleasures, and is that we think that experiencing something we like is a gain. We gain something from it. And so this is why renunciation feels so kind of off-putting. You know, it's kind of like harsh and cold, and because this thing, there's, you know, all this kind of good stuff, you give it up. You know, it's like you might say, well, yeah, I'm doing something that few people can do, and I feel a bit proud about it that way. But that's not really renunciation. And in fact, the very idea of renunciation is based on there is something that's really sort of good and wonderful and valuable that somehow you have to give up for the greater good. But if you look more closely, it's not. It's empty. We're projecting so much upon this, and you know, why do we think like that when we have some kind of pleasure in life, that our life has been enhanced by this? When I'm reminded when I used to go back to England every couple of years, I used to go to bookstores with somebody, maybe my brother. And I like looking at the back covers of paperbacks. And why I like looking back, I like looking at the blurbs and the praise given to books, because it's such a I think, accurate kind of snapshot of the values of the society at that particular moment. You know, what they use to praise the book and encourage people to buy the book. So, like in the 1980s, suddenly you get this on the back pages of books. You get the word irreverent a lot, suddenly out of nowhere. You know, it's like I was thinking, why would that make you want to buy a book? Because it's irreverent, you know. But that was like a selling point. And then there was the whole life-affirming, a life-affirming book. I thought, what does that even mean? You know, it affirms that there is life. So I think it kind of means sensuality affirming, actually. But the you know, the idea that somehow a life with a lot of forms and sounds and experiences is a rich life. I mean, that's almost unquestioned, isn't it, in Western world? You know, a rich life is when where you see so many things and you hear so many things, and you. But myself, I did do quite a lot of things as a teenager, and left home and travelled around the world and had adventures and experiences that most people of my age not have. And then I returned to Europe, and then I didn't have any money, so I went to Switzerland and got a job on a farm. And I had a book with me, and just one book, and it was an anthology from the suttas, Buddhist discourses. I think it was the first time that I read, or maybe I had read before, it didn't really impress me, but it's this very short sutta, and the Buddha says, monks, I will tell you the all. What is the all? And the all is forms cognizable with the eyes, sounds cognizable with the ears, and odors cognizable with the nose, and flavors cognizable by the tongue, and physical sensations cognizable by the body, and mental states cognizable by the mind. This is the all. And for me, it's something that should have been obvious, but, well, you know, I've left home when I was 17, traveled to 20 more different countries, seen this, seen that, but all I've actually seen is forms. And even if I got some more money together and traveled around the world again and did this and did that, I would never see anything more than forms. And whatever sounds I heard, whatever incredible sounds or music or whatever, it's actually just sound, isn't it? And smell, you smell flavors, all different kinds of foods and cuisines, and it's just flavors. And yeah, physical sensations, that's just what they are. And I thought, actually that's just such a narrow world. It's not a rich world. It's quite the opposite. It's quite confined. You know, if your mind or your life is concerned with accumulating pleasant physical forms and sounds and odors, and that's it. It seems a kind of like a sad, constricted life to me, rather than being a sort of a full, life-affirming, joyful existence. So that's one of the things that really led me to becoming a monk, of course. So without maybe taking it quite to that level, but in meditation, when we're saying, okay, let's try to develop awareness stabilize awareness, clarify awareness, rather than having it flicker here and flicker there and leak out here and leak out there, to establish a clear, bright, stable awareness, using meditation technique as a means, as a tool to do that, and then seeing how the mind instinctively looks for some kind of sensual input, whether it's an actual form, sound, or the memory or the imagination of, as a refuge. And say, oh, this is what taking Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as refuge means. They're not taking refuge in pleasure and pleasurable sensations. You can't live a life without pleasurable sensations. That's not the point. But not taking them as a refuge. And then the second hindrance of ill will. Again, it's very difficult to translate. I mean, the word is in Pali indeed is. It's an umbrella term. It covers a spectrum from just this mild pushing back against experience, a rejection of the present moment, all the way to like full-blown rage. In meditation, then it can manifest as ill will towards other people. So memories of things people have said and things people have done. There's something addictive about that. We're talking about grudges or just something that upset you and you didn't like it, and or you have some kind of ongoing issue with somebody. And for some people, on some occasions, that can be the trap, as something that just pull you into it. Suddenly you're just going over and over again, things you've gone over I don't know how many times. He said this, she said that, and that's not fair, and it was not, and I should have said this, why did I say that, and going around. And there's an addictive quality to that kind of negativity. There's a pleasure in it, a kind of perverse pleasure in ill will. But it doesn't necessarily have to be directed towards other people. Ill will can be directed towards yourself. I'm hopeless, I've made all this effort to come here, and now I'm trying to meditate, my mind is going here and going there, I've been doing this for so long, and then I'm hopeless, I'm terrible. So ill will towards yourself, and then ill will towards the meditation. Towards the practice. And somebody today was saying this meditation is like dry and unsatisfying, and he's developing this prejudice against it. So meditation practice, it exposes this. It exposes this habit, just as for some of us, maybe the predominant defilement is the sensual one, where the mind's thinking of pleasant things and enjoyable things and just going off into a little world of pleasure. But for other people, it can be that slip into negativity. And to see that as a hindrance. And again, we had a question this afternoon, and there's so many, even in a monastery, a meditation center, we're all practicing together. If the mind wants to find fault, and want to feel offended and want to blame somebody or something, there's always somebody who can fulfill that role for us, somebody who coughs and sneezes and makes a noise when they get up and makes a noise when they sit down. And when we think about it objectively, it seems ridiculous that we could be so upset by such a small thing. But that's the nature of hindrance, the nature of defilement. It just takes things so seriously, and it becomes, complete obsession. So noticing and observing this as what they call a malfunction of the mind, which in daily life, unless we meditate, and unless it's very extreme, we're unlikely even to recognize it as problematic. Then there's the third hindrance of dullness and sloth and torpor and laziness, and so people get very kind of self-righteous and judgmental about laziness. It's like, I'm a bad person because I'm lazy. A lot of us had that drummed into us as children. But these are just habits of mind. But the tendency when we become uncomfortable to switch off is a major cause of dullness and sleepiness. So it might simply be we're not getting enough stimulation. If you're in a daily life, a lot going on in your life, and you become accustomed to a certain level of stimulation, and then you meditate and you're reducing the level of stimulation radically, there's going to be some reaction to that. And the most common reaction is for the mind to go dull or to switch off. As if, for many people, unfortunately, the only time they really stop thinking and thinking is when it's time to go to bed, and then even then, many people have to take a pill before they can stop thinking. But if your only experience of cessation of thought is prior to laying down to sleep at night, then in meditation, where thinking is reduced and stimulation is being reduced, then the brain may be fooled into thinking time to go to bed, and so fall asleep. So this is definitely hindrance. But at the more subtle end of this spectrum, it's a state of mind which many people feel would consider to be meditation or samadhi. It's a stiffness of mind. So it can be quite still, but there's no life in it. There's no juice in it. There's no awareness in it. Ajahn Lumpu famously called it like tree stump samadhi. So you can sit there, like a tree stump, and you can, and maybe feel, wow, he's been sitting there for 2 hours now. Wow, that's so, but actually, there's no life in it. It's not the samma samadhi or the samadhi that will lead to insight. So it's a dull state of mind, and that dull state of mind is peaceful. So that's the allure of it. That's why people get caught in it, because for most people it's preferable to thinking. And you feel kind of sense of accomplishment to a certain degree. But one of the conditioning factors that leads to that kind of wrong samadhi, or the hindrance of sloth and torpor in its more subtle expression, is like staring at the object, the meditation object. So, we focus, and you should have that kind of gentleness of focus. So it's like how you'd hold a baby, or how you hold, in the Visuddhimagga, is how you hold a bird, a small bird in your hand, rather than a baby. If you hold it too tight, you'll harm the bird, it might even die. Too lightly, and it flies away. So the skill is to hold it with just enough force to restrain it without harming it. And when there's effort without relaxation, and that effort tends to be like just, concentrate. I don't like that word, concentrating. I try to avoid it. But that's that idea, you concentrate on the object, so it's like staring intently at the object. And that's what often leads to this kind of stiffness of mind. So you're not necessarily, you're not nodding backwards and forwards and falling asleep, but you're in a state of calm which is without mindfulness and clear comprehension. So that's also a hindrance. Fourth hindrance is agitation. Well, it's two parts to it. One part is mental agitation. So this is the classic monkey mind, jumping from this and jumping from that to that. So in the first hindrance, you're thinking about and dwelling on particular topics that you find enjoyable. Here, the mind is just going all over the place without any rhyme or reason or plan, and it's just to keep moving. And it's like it can be quite frightening. It's like being caught up in in the rapids on a river, and just feeling helpless. And I had this experience myself as a young monk, and I went to spend a year in a cave, a pitch black cave, and the monks had to climb up this rickety bamboo ladder up a cliff face and then crawl into this cave. And this sort of opens up, and there's a little place to sit and a short walking path. And so the abbot and all the monks came to see me off and say goodbye, and so then I was left alone. This was my dream, sensory deprivation. I dreamed of this and never thought I'd be able to do it for a whole year as well. And the monks are going to promise to bring me something to eat every day, some water when I need, so nothing to worry about. Absolute perfect conditions for meditation. And everybody left and I sat down, and I've never been so full of mental agitation. It was absolutely overwhelming. And I thought, relax, this will just peter out, and just take it easy. And it went on for hours and hours. And then what you think, my goodness, a year of this. I was really, was this a good idea? Because I determined, even if it was a year, I wasn't going to leave the cave. I would have done that, I think, but fortunately, over the course of the night, it just settled down. But it's just such a vivid memory of just sort of like being shipwrecked on this, like the rapids, shooting the rapids, and so that's definitely a hindrance to meditation. Again, in terms of causal factors, not so much for me then, that was kind of a special occasion, but generally too much information in the mind. And that if you're having a lot of agitation in meditation, then the answer to it is probably not going to be so much in some hacks or special meditation techniques alone, but taking a close look at your daily life and how much information you are letting into your brain every day. It's a sign it's too much and need to simplify a little bit. The second part of this hindrance is worry, particularly going over and over things in the past that you did and you shouldn't have done, or you didn't do and you should have done. So it's like guilty feeling. So in Buddhist psychology, you make a distinction between guilt and shame. So shame is a wholesome mental state. It's a recognition of actions and speech and so on, which are harmful to oneself and one other and others, and recognizing that there's a sense of shrinking away from the sense of shame. But guilt, at least as I understand it, is based upon an idea of me, a bad person, or a foolish person who's done bad things, and I'm bad because I've done bad things, that kind of idea. So that's a hindrance, and takes the mind round and round in very dark places, and certainly a hindrance to meditation. Fifth hindrance is skeptical doubt. So some doubts are good doubts. So when the Kalama people said, all these teachers come here and every one of them so articulate, so inspiring, and they say, only what I teach is right, what everyone else teaches is wrong, and you hear this teacher teaching, you say yes, and then next week someone else comes and says something completely different, and you think yes, but they're completely contradict each other. So when you're having all these spiritual teachers that claim great knowledge, wisdom, and proclaim that they're right and everyone else is wrong, how do you know? We're confused. And the Buddha says, very good. You're doubting about something which is appropriate to doubt. So doubt can be a sign of wisdom. I realize I don't have the information I need to make a good decision on this topic. But where doubt becomes vicikicca, the doubt which is a hindrance, is when we have sufficient information to move forwards, but we want to have complete cast iron guarantees beforehand. And we want to know for sure that if we're going to put our time and effort into this, that it's definitely going to have the result that everyone says it will have. And so you're caught, you're demanding impossible guarantees before you'll make the slightest movement. It's like one of these international conflicts where neither side will budge an inch, so you won't budge an inch until you can be sure, but you can't be sure until you budge an inch, because you have to take some of this on trust, take some of it out of faith in the Buddha's wisdom and compassion. And say, yeah, I've done my homework, thought about it, investigated it, gone as far as I can on that route. Now's the time just to put my faith, put my trust in the Buddha and make a commitment of time and effort. So Buddha says if you have the first hindrance It's like you're in debt. Second hindrance of ill will. It's like you've got a fever. Third hindrance of sloth and torpor. It's like you're in prison. Fourth hindrance of agitation, worry. It's like you're a slave. Fifth hindrance is like you're lost in a desert somewhere. So when you let go of the first hindrance, it's like you become free of debt. Let go of the second hindrance, it's like you recover from a fever. Let go of the third hindrance, it's like you're released from prison. Let go of the fourth hindrance, it's like you're freed from slavery. And let go of the fifth hindrance, and you sort of find the way home. So I've only just been talking about the problem, and really not, probably what you're more interested to hear is like, well, what can we do about all this stuff? I think we have to maybe leave that for tomorrow, but as a preview, or just very... first with hindrance, recognize a hindrance as a hindrance, and return to the meditation object because you want to, because you see the value of it. So you're making a conscious choice. I prefer to be with the breath than with this pleasant memory or this fantasy. So developing that emotional connection with your meditation object, one in which you're cultivating a very important, perhaps the most important relationship in your life that you will ever have. And you don't want to jeopardize this relationship by hanging out with all these disreputable thoughts and memories. So you say, no thank you, I prefer to stay home with the breath. And you come home to the breath. With ill will, it's the same. You recognize, oh, this is ill will. This is the hindrance of ill will. This is a dead end. This is taking me in the completely opposite direction to the direction that I want to follow. Put it down, come back to the breath. This is the breath, and this cultivation of awareness, using the breath as a tool, this is what will take me to peace and true happiness and liberation. Certainly ill will and dwelling on the faults and bad conduct of this person and that person, or my own shortcomings, not going to do that. And become aware of sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor, it's not a monster. Just be aware of the physical manifestation. How does it feel to be sleepy? So you're not reacting against it. So where is this? Where is sleepiness? What does it feel like in my head, in my shoulder, in my body? Turning the light of awareness to sleepiness. If you can, you have sufficient mindfulness, return to the breath. Agitation, again, I'll give you one skillful means to begin now. Don't fight thinking. Thinking's not your enemy. Thinking sprouts in your mind like hair sprouts in your scalp. It's just normal and natural. But it's when you take a delight in thinking and take thinking as a refuge and that it becomes a problem. But if you've got this agitated thinking, like these rapids of thinking that I was mentioning just now, this is what you do. You say, okay, carry on, but you have to think in slow motion. Okay? So you're not fighting against the thinking. Say, okay, slow motion. So I wonder what time the talk will end tonight. Something like this. So you're not saying don't think, You're allowing yourself to think, but you're slowing it down. And when you slow it down, first thing that often happens is you just can't be bored. It's just not that important to carry that thought on to the end. So the mind just puts it down voluntarily. This is the point. This is the key feature of this method. The other is when you consciously slow down the thinking without trying to stop it altogether, what you're in fact doing is you're inserting spaces between the words. So, I wonder what. And then you now have the words of this thought and the spaces between the words, and now you can incline your mind to the spaces between the words rather than the words themselves. And this is also a way of letting go of agitated thought. There's one beautiful, elegant Tibetan method, and that is to imagine that your thoughts are written on water. So imagine like a still body of water, and then these thoughts appearing on the surface of the water. And what happens? They just dissolve. And why this is such an elegant method is because you don't feel that you're doing it. It's not me having to deal with these thoughts. It's just something that happens naturally through the power of perception and memory and so on. With doubt, and then just, as I say, make determinations, make vows to say, investigate different meditation objects, for instance, for different techniques, try certain stuff, but give yourself a deadline, and at the end of the deadline just commit yourself to something and saying, I'm just not going to worry about, is it right, is it not right, is this, because I don't have the data that I need. Now I'm going to put 3 months or 6 months of my life into this and then review. I don't need to review every hour of the day or every half hour or every time I find it difficult. So there's a lot more to be said about this, but we can carry on tomorrow.